Welcome back to the Brandon Parnes Hour of Fun. I am here with Mr. Ralph Garman. You know him from Family Guy, The Joe Schmo Show, Hollywood Babylon. Ralph, I'm so happy to have you here on the show.
My pleasure, Brandon. Thanks for having me.
This is amazing because it was funny because I've kind of seen you pop up here and there in TED and other stuff, but it was the first time I kind of latched onto you as like a performer is when Joe Schmo came back in 2013. I found out that they were doing Joe Schmo again like 2 days before it started airing. And I was like, I'm going to watch this show. I'm going to make it my new favorite show, and I did, and it was just an incredible season.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it. Did you see any of the previous two?
I was able to get the first one on Netflix. The second one was on hold on Netflix, but then they do that thing where they take it off the DVD queue, and they don't have it in stock, and I didn't get to see the second season, but the first and the third season were my favorite, just because those are the only two I've seen, and they were great. I loved them.
Well, those are the two best ones, so you saw the good ones.
Awesome. So, how did Joe Schmo come about for you?
Well, I do a radio show myself here in Los Angeles. I work on a morning radio show here in town, and I have for about 15 years. And the producers of Schmo, when they first started working on it, they were fans of my work on the radio, and so they brought me into the office, and they said, would you want to host a show? Now, when you work in radio, a lot of people think that's what you want to do. You want to be like Ryan Seacrest and host some cheesy game show or something. So I had a lot of interviews to meet with people about hosting stuff before, and I was never really interested because I didn't want to read cue cards or do a game show or some reality show or something like that. Yeah. So they explained to me, though, what their angle was going to be, how it was going to be a spoof of reality shows, and that one guy was going to be clueless, thinking he was on a real reality show, and the whole rest of the show would be populated with improv comedy actors, and we were going to put on basically a play for one person and film it, then reveal it to him at the end. And I thought that was such a cool, novel idea that I absolutely wanted to be on board, so I agreed right away, and that's how the whole thing started, and then we did the two other seasons as well.
Yeah, and it just was amazing television, and like Kristen Wiig started on Joe Schmo Show, and now look at her, and David Hornsby's on there, and Michael Weaver was just on the third season, and now Super Troopers is coming back as a sequel. So a lot of things can come out of the Joe Schmo Show.
Yeah, that was a break for a lot of people. As mentioned, Hornsby and Lance Kroll, and of course Kristen. And it was so funny when we were shooting the first season, everybody on the set knew that Kristen was something special. And I remember saying to her at the wrap party, I said, you should be on every TV show everywhere because you're just so talented. And she was just doing the groundlings at the time out here in L.A., doing some sketch comedy and some improv comedy. And then to watch her career turn into what it has become is just so cool for me. I'm so happy for her. She's a great lady.
And that's super, super cool. And I just remember watching Joe Schmo, knowing the concept, but then actually seeing it in that third season. And I feel like with any type of medium, the first iteration that you see, you kind of make it your own, and that's the one that you kind of hold true. So for me, it was easy watching the first season, but for me, season 3 will always be like my season.
Well, that's cool to hear. I mean, we were really proud of the third one, and we were bummed that the ratings weren't as high as we would have liked, but we just thought the work that we were doing, really, we had got it down. We had sort of the format down, and we knew how we were going to go about it, and then to add the extra element for me of not only being the host, but also playing a character on the show, it really was, I think, my favorite season, too.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw this, but when the show was still going on, I actually sent you a tweet of asking you if you got the idea for Jake Montrose, the character that you played, and I tagged a picture of Ron Perlman because you kind of had the similar look there.
When I first met with the producers and they said they were bringing the show back and they talked about Jake, the character, that was the image that they gave me. They said, Ron Perlman, think Ron Perlman from Sons of Anarchy crossed with Dog the Bounty Hunter. Yeah. That was the visual they gave me, and I said, I know exactly who that guy is and what he should look like. So I kind of devised the look of the character myself, and I told them going in, I said, the one thing that always cracked me up about Dog the Bounty Hunter is he never has sleeves on any of his clothes.
Yeah.
And I said that was the one thing I insisted to talk to the costume people and say, whatever you put me in, I don't want to have any sleeves on it. So even at the very end, you'll notice in the final eviction ceremony at the end, I'm wearing a suit basically, but even the suit has no sleeves.
I'm going to go back and watch that because I have it somewhere on my computer, and it's it was Just a Genius show, and maybe in another 10 years you'll bring it back again. So
yeah, I don't know if we'll go around again, but if they do, I'd be glad to do it.
Yeah. I want to talk because not far adjacent to radio these days is podcasting. You have a very successful one, Hollywood Babylon. I have so much going on in my life. Podcasts have sadly become something that I can't always listen to, but I heard yours is very, very successful. I'd love to listen to it when I get the time. But for those uninitiated, what is Hollywood Babylon?
Hollywood Babylon is the brainchild of myself and actor, writer, director, podcasting guru Kevin Smith. We have become pals over the years and had been friends and decided we wanted to work on something together. And I do a regular segment on my morning radio show here in L.A. where I do hourly reports on show business news with my own sort of take and spin on it. And whenever Kevin was on the show to guest, whether he was, promoting a movie or something, I would always have him sit in with me and we would do it together. It's like a 5-minute segment on the air in the morning. But we always had such a great time doing it that when we decided to branch out and do our own project, I said, let's do that thing we do with the show business news, only we'll do it long form, and let's put it up in front of a live audience. And we tried it out first at a little 50-seat theater that Kevin was renting at the time. And we did the first one, and people seemed to like it, and people kept coming back. We kept selling out, so we kept moving to larger and larger venues. And now we do it every week at the famous Improv Comedy Club here in Los Angeles on Friday nights in front of about 250 people. And it's been almost 5 years. It'll be 5 years this summer, and people really seem to like it. We're really thrilled.
Yeah, it's amazing. And based on, the entertainment news thing, that's kind of what I do on my show here. I don't really riff on it. I just kind of, announce it and say, oh, this is happening. I think, and I kind of give my opinion on it. But it's just cool that we're kind of akin in that kind of sort of way.
Yeah, a lot of people are really interested in pop culture and entertainment news, and it's become sort of a fascination for most of America, I think. You think about it now, the box office results on Monday morning are as important to people as what movies they're going to go see that weekend. They want to know what came in at number one. They want to know what the stars are doing. So there's that aspect of it. We certainly cover that stuff. But what Kevin and I do also is a lot of comedy, a lot of jokes about people, and we mock the people that we don't like, and we praise the people that we do. And we've got a bunch of recurring segments in the show as well. So it has grown into an hour and a half now of comedy in front of a live audience that also we put up as a podcast.
So kind of like a great variety show for the modern ear.
Kind of, yeah, but it's kind of more of a live comedy show. In front of an audience, and then we just take the audio from that and we post it up. So some people complain, sometimes the podcast listeners will say, it feels like some of the stuff is very visual because we do play video clips and things like that. And we say, yeah, I can understand why that might be frustrating, but primarily the people who are paying for tickets to see the show, we want to make sure they get a good show first and foremost, and then hopefully people who listen to the podcast after the fact can enjoy it on its own merits.
Yeah, and I, again, definitely going to listen to it after this interview since I get to talk to the master himself. So when we come back, we have a few minutes left in this segment, but I want to talk some other stuff as well because we only have you here for a shorter amount of time. But I'm just trying to think about what else to talk about in this segment. We mentioned before we recorded you're in A Million Ways to Die in the West. You have a good friendship with Seth MacFarlane. You do voices on Family Guy. You're in Ted also. Ted 2 coming up. Anything that are you in that?
Well, I can't really talk too much about it, but Seth is such a great guy. MacFarlane and I have been, like you mentioned, buddies forever because I've worked with him on Family Guy for over a decade, doing a bunch of voices for that show. And he has kind of made a point of putting me in all of his projects. So wow. I've been in Ted and then A Million Ways to Die, of course, and he said with Ted 2 he wanted to put me in it, and I said, well, I played the dad in the first Ted, and that character sort of has gone away, so there's no way really you can bring me back in any way that I think people would accept, so I won't take it personally if I'm not in this film. Yeah. He said, no, we'll find something for you, and he did, so I don't want to give anything away.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
If you watch Ted 2 carefully, you'll catch me popping up.
Yeah, I will watch it the first time. I probably won't see it. Then it'll be like Airplane. You're always seeing new things as you watch it.
Yeah, but I tell you something. I was there in New York when we were shooting a bunch of stuff with Mark and Amanda Seyfried, and it's a brilliant script. It's very, very funny, and I think it's going to be a huge hit.
Yeah, and I'm so excited because I saw the first one with my aunt, and I knew what I was getting into. I don't think she knew. She just thought, oh, it's a cute little teddy bear. But I still thought it was a great movie, and I watched it with my dad a bunch of times, and I just love that film. And I love the extended cut better.
Anybody who thought it was going to be about a talking stuffed animal, I think, had a rude awakening coming to them when they saw Ted.
Yeah, and I love the extended cut because we get to see more of you, so...
we had some additional funny stuff we shot there in the beginning sequence, and I mean that's the way Ted was. I mean, Seth was always coming up with stuff on the set, and we had the writers also on the set. So sometimes we would just shoot what was in the page, and then somebody would have an idea, and we'd go off and do something a little extra. So I enjoyed that too. I watched the stuff with me and Alex Borstein as Mark Wahlberg's mom in that flashback sequence, and there was some really funny stuff.
Okay, we'll be right back with more Ralph Garman right after this. Welcome back to the Brandon Parnes Hour Fun. I have one of my really favorite comedians, Mr. Ralph Garman here. How are you doing, Ralph?
I'm well, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, and of course we're back. So I wanted to kick this segment off. I listened to your Nerdist podcast where you talked a little about this, but for just the listeners who don't know, how did you get into doing the radio thing?
First of all, let me say, sure, you can listen to Chris Hardwick's podcast, but you can't listen to mine. I see how things work around here now.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I've had a very sort of weird route through my career. I started off as an actor primarily, and a dramatic actor at that, and then I started getting into sketch and improv comedy here in Los Angeles. So I was doing that on stage. I never really got into stand-up per se, but I was just sort of in the comedy world. Yeah. And that's when I crossed paths with Adam Carolla and Jimmy Kimmel. We became friends. And those guys were working on a morning radio show here in Los Angeles called Kevin and Bean Show on KROQ-FM here in town.
My mom knows because she lived in she doesn't know the show, but she definitely knows the station. Yeah,
it's a pretty big station here in Los Angeles. And they were leaving the morning radio show to go off and do a thing called The Man Show on Comedy Central that they had developed. So the guys that they worked with, Kevin and Bean, asked if they knew anybody who could sit in just for an interim and do voices and characters and write comedy and things like that. So Jimmy recommended me to the guys, and I didn't really know the show at the time, and they didn't really know who I was, so it was sort of an uneasy alliance, but they needed somebody, and I said, okay, well, I'll do it for like 6 months until you find a permanent replacement for Jimmy and Adam, and that now has been like 16 years later. So I guess what was supposed to be a temporary job turned into a career.
That's amazing, and I think especially I'm learning now just as a young person trying to because I want to be I know you talked about this earlier, but I actually want to be a TV host when I grow up. So but just kind of making connections, you never know where it can lead you. So
of course not. That's the thing I always tell people. I say just work as much as you can and make as many friends in as many different areas as you can, and if you're good and people like your work, you'd be surprised how something will lead to something else, and you might not even see it coming down the pipeline, but next thing you know, you got a job.
Yeah. So right now, we have about 8 minutes left in this segment, and unlike a podcast where we're kind of on a strict thing, this is the time where we can riff. So
okay.
I know you do many characters and impressions and stuff like that, and we're just going to test to see if Wikipedia is actually right.
Oh, my goodness. All right.
So it says on Wikipedia you can do Johnny Carson. Is that true?
Yes, it is. I can, in fact, do Johnny Carson.
Yeah, I do. I do a really bad Johnny Carson. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, a lot of people might think mine is too, so that's okay.
Well, no, Eddie. It sounds great, especially since I'm hearing it firsthand. But mine's like I know Kevin Pollak does a thing where it's Johnny Carson saying random song lyrics.
Oh yeah.
So mine is 'cause it ain't no lie, baby, bye bye bye.
Hey, that's good.
Yeah. It also says, since we'll go in the radio television realm, Casey Kasem.
Casey Kasem, America's Top 40. I got a long-distance dedication from a little girl who lost her puppy.
Oh, that is genius. Because my Casey Kasem's kind of similar. It's like, I'm Casey Kasem.
Keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars.
Ah, that's beautiful. Dick Clark, that's kind of an odd one.
Dick Clark, I don't know why I don't know why I know what you're referring to in that Wikipedia page, but I don't know where that came from. I don't think I've ever done Dick Clark.
Wow. Okay, so we can...
you can't always believe what you read on the internet.
It is confirmed Ralph Garman cannot do Dick Clark.
Yeah, I don't know anybody who does a Dick Clark.
Yeah, because that's kind of like he's a famous figure, but it's kind of not a peculiar voice. So
he made his career by not standing out too much, quite frankly. So.
Yeah. So we can now source this by saying you don't do Dick Clark, so we can remove that from Wikipedia. So we accomplished something, Ralph.
Oh, finally.
Yes. I'm just trying to think. You do a great Adam West impression. Now, for me as a kid growing up on Nickelodeon, the only reason I knew Adam West is because he was on the Fairly Odd Parents a couple times.
That's right, Catman, right?
Yeah, he was Catman, but you do one of the best Adam West impressions in the biz. Can I please hear it?
Well, sure. I mean, I was a huge Batman fan growing up watching him, and then I got to know him from doing Family Guy together. He, of course, is the mayor on Quahog. And so it's always a pleasure to hang out with him, and I get to do him to him sometimes, and it's very fun. But Adam is, you see, Commissioner, the Joker, that evil clown prince of crime, is back to puzzle Gotham City once again.
Oh, that is beautiful. Is there anyone you just want to do just kind of right now on the spot? Because I don't actually have the Wikipedia page up. I apologize, but is there anyone you just kind of want to share?
You know, my favorite is, and I think it's a favorite of a lot of people, especially who listen to the Hollywood Babylon podcast, is my Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Okay,
which
please.
Is just so much fun.
Please, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, because when you do Arnold, you can say all these things that, people don't expect you to. Like when you talked about quantum physics and all these other things, that I love.
Because I'm just a fan of impressions and characters and stuff like that, so just hearing things I go crazy for it. So
it's one of those things. I mean, the impressions were things I did for my friends that I would make them laugh, at the bar and stuff. I never in a million years thought I'd be using that as a professional tool. Yeah. So you have to be careful. You have to develop as many things as you can because you never know what might come in handy.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember I watched this documentary. I don't know if you've seen it on voice acting, because I know you do voice acting as well, called I Know That Voice, that John DiMaggio put together.
Sure, I know a lot of those guys in that documentary. They're all buddies of mine.
And I remember it was either Darren Norris or Hank Azaria who said, like, a bad impression can become a great character.
That's true.
And that's always what I think about when I do my really bad impressions, that, hey, if I ever get into voice acting, these bad impressions could become great characters. So
yes, and I do a bunch of impressions on the podcast as well, sort of recurring impressions that people will write in and say, oh, do Yoda talking about the Force, but do it as Pee Wee Herman or something like that. So, I mean, if you have enough content and you have material that you can do in those voices, people will be very forgiving if you're not spot on with your impression.
Yeah, because I remember, like, Seth was on Graham Norton, and he was like, you do Liam Neeson, right? And he said, no, I actually do Kermit the Frog doing Liam Neeson's speech from Taken. And that cracked me up.
Yeah, that stuff is great.
Yeah. And so right now we have about about 4 or 5 minutes left. Let's get the plugs out of the way. Anything you'd like to plug?
Well, I've got, of course, the podcast, Hollywood Babylon. You can find that at smodcast.com, smodcast.com, or on iTunes. It's Hollywood Babylon, me and Kevin Smith. That's ongoing. And then this summer on Sci-Fi, I'm going to be working on a TV movie that we've just finished. Me and Steve Guttenberg are going to be fighting giant flame-spewing spiders called Lavalantula. That's one of their new creature features on the Sci-Fi Channel. We're on in July, leading up to the return of Sharknado, so that'll be fun.
Yeah.
I got a film that I did with Kevin Smith, he was the director of, called Yoga Hosers. It comes out this summer.
Awesome.
And then in the fall, we'll be shooting Mallrats 2, so that'll be coming up. So I got a lot of stuff going on right now, and of course, if you're in Los Angeles, you can tune into the Kevin and Bean Show on K-Rock in the mornings, Monday through Friday.
Is that available as a podcast, the Kevin and Bean Show?
Yes, you can find Kevin and Bean, as in a beanstalk. That is available on iTunes, and also we stream on the KROQ.com website as well.
Awesome. And, of course, Ted 2.
Ted 2, of course, yeah, that's coming up, and you'll see me a little bit in that. and I got some more TV and movie things in the fire that haven't really firmed up yet, but I'm always out there hustling. I like to have 2 or 3 plates spinning at the same time.
Awesome, and I'm guessing Family Guy's returning in the fall?
Yes, I just recorded a bunch of new stuff for Family Guy, and now they're furiously animating away, so in the fall we'll have brand new episodes.
Okay, this is amazing. I just want to thank you so much, because I remember just hearing you, hearing about Joe Schmo Show, watching you on Joe Schmo Show, then just kind of diving into your career, and just never thinking I would actually get to talk to you and possibly have you back in the next season of the show if we get it, if we get picked up. But this has been amazing. I say, even though I may have not dreamt it, I dreamt it at one point to make it happen. So every interview that I do, it's a dream come true to do it. So thank you so much.
Well, I was very flattered that you asked, Brad. Thanks for having me on your show.
Okay. Right now, we have about a minute left. I'm watching the time go by. So, seen any good movies lately?
I have a kid. I've got a 5-year-old, so I don't get to see as many things as I like. And when I do, sometimes they're kids' movies.
Yeah.
So I just saw Home with Jim Parsons and Rihanna, the animated thing from DreamWorks. And I got to tell you, I really loved that movie. I thought it was just really adorable, and I got a kick out of it. Steve Martin's another one of the voices in it, and being a voice actor myself and watching people in animation is always fascinating to me, and I just thought it was great.
Okay, well, awesome. We have about now 40 seconds left. I want to thank you so much once again. Ralph Garman, everybody. As he said, a bunch of things coming out this summer. So thank you, Ralph, and stay tuned for Carson Daly, everybody. We will see you tomorrow on the Brandon Parnes Hour of Fun. Mark Summers will be here, so very, very exciting. As to quote Casey Kasem, keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars. Thank you so much, everybody. We will see you tomorrow with Mark Summers and more music here on the Brandon Parnes Hour of Fun. Take care!